Hello, I'm Bill Greer, President of Smart Recovery USA.
And I'm Mark Ruth, the Executive Director of Smart Recovery USA. On behalf of our past, present, and future SMART leadership team and our worldwide SMART community, we'd like to share with you several extraordinary presentations from our 2019 Silver Anniversary National Conference.
We hope they will inform your work and inspire your service to SMART. Together, we will embark on our next 25 years of helping individuals and families recover from addiction and find balance and purpose in life.
I've travelled a long way around the world from Australia to be here today. And there's a very clear reason that I've done that. For me, it's about being, even though I'm here just for the weekend, it's about being face to face with everybody that's here and hearing the stories like Kathy's and Deshawn's that really embed the reason that SMART is making such a difference in the past and in the and will do in the future to so many lives. So that's what drives me to be a part of this wonderful organisation. One thing that I hear in a lot of the conversations today is that people believe that if they knew earlier about SMART, or if they could share the news more globally about SMART, then that would make just the difference. So I think that that's one of the fundamental reasons that Smart Recovery International exists, is for us to be able to synthesise our view of what's happening internationally and see how we can raise the profile and therefore the expectations and the success of the program worldwide. So we're very clear about what our vision is with Smart Recovery, certainly from an international perspective, that we have an addiction-free world where people strive together to lead the best life for themselves, their families and their communities. And Kathy started to talk about some of the values that underpin that, and I think that that's certainly something, if we look at I guess potentially some new information for you today about SRI, is that our values are what underpin the internal operations, but also the way that we view everybody that's a part of SMART and the way that we talk about the organisation. So we are strong believers and advocates for empowerment, for acceptance, for accessibility, for openness and for liberation. And in having this inclusive view, we really believe that that's what's going to drive the organisation forward. Kim, joining us from Indonesia, albeit also Australian, is going to talk a little bit more today about where we've come from in the last 12 months and where we're planning to go in the next 12.
Yeah. Hi everyone, can you hear me? No. The handheld? Okay, now? We're not real good at this, are we?
We don't have microphones in Australia.
No, we don't. Okay, now okay, now I know you can hear me because I can hear myself, which is a little weird, but okay, we'll go with this. Nice to be here. In fact, it's amazing to be here. This is the most incredible organisation. I've worked for over 30 years in not-for-profit organisations, and this is an amazing organisation. I consider myself privileged and honoured to actually have been chosen for the role of EO with Smart Recovery International, and it's really, really awesome to be here. Obviously, Bill referred to in his earlier opening remarks of how Smart Recovery became a global organisation a long time before the inception of Smart Recovery International. And it wasn't long after the first meetings established in America that Smart Recovery began meetings in Australia, in the UK, and in Canada. Of course, now we're here in 2009, and we have meetings in over 23 countries across the world. And it's that rapid growth that created the need for Smart Recovery International, the arm of the organisation that oversees the international growth of the meetings across the world. We continue to receive ongoing weekly interest in Smart Recovery and receive queries from around the world all the time. In the 9 months that I've been with the organisation, we've received over 115 queries, separate queries, from individuals from across the world, from 23 different countries, all wanting information about SMART, to start SMART in their communities. So there is a continuous growing need for Smart Recovery across the world. SRI was formed formally established. It was the idea was conceived many years ago, but it became an actual organisation last year. And those people who were at the Smart Recovery Conference last year in Tempe, Arizona, would have had the pleasure of listening and hearing from Nadene for the first time and Bill, who introduced Smart Recovery International to the Smart Recovery community. It was after that particular conference that the Smart Recovery International Board of Directors met for the very first time to have their first strategy planning session. So 1 year on, Nadene and I are going to spend a short period of time just bringing you up to date with what the activities have been over the last 12 months. I'll just hand back to Nadene so she can talk about the Board of Directors.
So Bill shared with you an array of wonderful talent and dedicated individuals around the world on different boards. So I will just say, related to the International Board of Directors, that we have 3 independents. Myself, last year I was based in Beijing, China. We still have Lorena, who's in China, and we have Madeline, who's in Australia. And then we have also our UK and our US board directors. In addition, we have our executive directors from our member countries, Australia, the US and the UK, and of course Kim, who joins all of our meetings. And the reason I think it's very important that we have a very strong representation from member countries is because we want to not be dictators in what we believe is the ideal way forward for the organisation, but to be working in consultation with the different countries to understand not only what the global vision is, but then how do we make it a reality in consideration for local differences. We currently meet every 2 months. But as you'll hear, based on the progress that we've been able to gain traction with over the last 12 months, a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. So Kim is our only paid employee. The directors are all working on a voluntary basis. And in a moment, after Kim shares some of some of the detail around what we've been doing, I'll share with you how we're actually managing to progress in that regard.
Yep. Okay, I mentioned before that last year at the last Smart Recovery Conference, the SRI directors met for the first time to develop the strategic plan for the organisation. Coming out of that were the 4 strategic themes that you can see on the slides there, and they have been fundamental to all of the work that's been happening over the last 12 months. So establishing a new organisation has meant, whilst Smart Recovery is not a new organisation, SRI is a very new part of Smart Recovery, and therefore a great deal of investment of resources and time has had to go into building those governance structures, those fundamental structures to ensure legal process is covered for the organisation. It's been through the generosity of one single donor that Smart Recovery International Board of Directors were able to employ myself as the EO. So we're thankful to that particular person who's been able to give the impetus for us to actually get traction under these strategic themes. If you take just a few seconds to focus and reflect upon the SRI strategic themes, you can see that they all have a different area of focus, obviously, but there is one constant running amongst all of them, and that is to ensure the fidelity of the SMART program. Overseeing a global operation is a significant responsibility, and I know that the SRI Board of Directors take that responsibility very seriously. And ultimately, one of the constant themes that comes out in every discussion is the need for the brand to be true, to be smart. So whether people are having a meeting online, whether they're meeting in Romania, whether they're meeting in Brazil, Indonesia or India, it's a smart meeting, no matter what language it's being carried out in. That's really important. So fidelity of the brand is a hugely important part of the role of SRI. Some of the key achievements over the first 9 months was being able to employ an EO, which is me, of course.
Kim.
Yeah. It was odd, wasn't it? That came out wrong.
Let's talk about me.
Yeah. We've laid the foundation stones for a strong governance framework. Smart Recovery International has taken legal ownership of all of the intellectual property and copyright of Smart Recovery in general. We've developed a suite of international licensing agreements. We've developed a set of facilitator competencies that have been agreed upon by member countries that facilitators will come out of training having these particular competencies. We're embarking on a training analysis of all the curriculums across the member countries. We've developed a fundraising strategy. We've developed a communication strategy. We've launched social media and web presences. We've developed communication systems for facilitators, and that's for facilitators who are outside of existing member countries. So for the one facilitator that's facilitating meetings in Thailand every week, or in Romania, or in Hong Kong, those facilitators are operating as lone wolves. We've licensed Smart Recovery Ireland, which was a huge achievement. Yay, Darren. And we've also commenced smart meetings in South Korea, Romania, Iceland, and in the Caribbean. Handbooks are being translated into Portuguese and Icelandic, and as I said before, we continue to receive inquiries from many countries around the world. It's been a busy 9 months. Nadene will now talk a bit more about the governance structure.
So busy 9 months, however, as I mentioned, because Kim's the only employee of SRI, we rely on the board directors and a number of other key stakeholders from around the world to sit on some of our committees. They're quite self-explanatory: finance, audit and risk, brand and communication, and the fundraising and global training committees. So each of those have a large number of people working, sometimes on a daily basis, but certainly on a weekly basis, to make sure that what it is that that we're trying to achieve is actually becoming operational.
Okay, just in relation to, we're all aware that addiction is a global health epidemic, and addiction has no borders. We all know that sort of language, but addiction is also a development issue. This particularly relates to Smart Recovery International Board of Directors deciding the positioning for Smart Recovery International, looking at where we're going to fit in the global addiction context. It's great that we continue to receive inquiries and organically will grow, and that's fantastic, but we also need to look where we're going to be strategically and position ourselves where we know there is need and where the program can be of greatest benefit in some countries. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, this set that was signed off in 2015 for the very first time, actually identify addiction as an issue, as a development issue. Sustainable Development Goal number 3, health and wellbeing, actually has a target activity that countries are measured against to see how they're doing for their population. And this particular target activity is to strengthen the prevention and treatment programs. And it's much longer than that, but that's pretty much what it means. How countries are actually strengthening the prevention and treatment programs for their citizens within the countries. There's an area there for Smart Recovery to actually identify that it can fulfil that need in developing countries that are signatories towards the SDGs. The World Drug Report, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, you can see the quote there, have identified that in order for treatment programs to be effective and to change the approach of war on drugs and to actually look at treating and targeting the demand of drugs rather than the supply of drugs, that treatment programs need to be based in science and they need to have a respect for human rights. Again, there's a room there for SMART to actually fit that particular model. And we know that messaging is already getting out, and we know that there are countries who are looking for those particular for programs that are based in science. We're currently in conversation with the Special Task Force for Drugs from the Punjabi region in India, who have heard about the Smart Recovery Program and who wish to explore putting it into 180 of their addiction rehabilitation centres, because they know that it's based in science, they know that there is no stigma and no blame involved with it. And they also know that they're signed up to the SDGs, so they're looking at ways to actually improve the circumstances for people who use drugs in their communities. This slide here is just some quotes that Nadene and I have gathered over a few months. There were a lot more, but these are ones that we just pulled out because it is all about the people. It's totally and utterly about the people who actually use the program, the people who facilitate the program. SMART is person-centric, and this is a way of just reinforcing that even at Smart Recovery International level, it's still about the people, and it's the people who use the program and the people who facilitate the program. So these are comments from facilitators and from SMART participants from around the world. This next one, and we have our fingers crossed that this is going to work, because this video has caused huge problems. So we're just going to see if it works. This video kind of sums up exactly, I think, very nicely how SMART actually does work from a human rights perspective, and how SMART, the non-stigma, actually encourages people to actually manage their behaviours. I see it. She's holding up a 1 to me, so I know I've got to hurry up. Alaric Tan is a SMART recovery facilitator and participant from an organisation called the Greenhouse in Singapore. The Greenhouse is a rehabilitation facility for people from LGBTQ communities in Singapore, hugely marginalised within that particular community, and they're also active drug users. Rick has very kindly decided to share his story, very quick story, with us to show how the SMART program actually serves his community members. Can you hear it?
SMART helped me understand why we do what we do with 12 steps so much better. I think the difference is that SMART is person-centric, but the 12 steps are process-oriented. Incorporating SMART allows us to fully utilize both systems of recovery in a way that makes their strengths. Most of us here at Greenhouse are LGBT, about half of us also HIV positive. Because of this, we struggle a lot with shame and fear of discrimination. SMART is an extremely valuable resource for us because it excludes the use of labels. It allows us to feel behavior in a way that doesn't define us. This helps us overcome the sense of shame and fear about sexual orientation and HIV status was often possible for them, which is why SMART is especially useful for marginalized communities that wish to gain true connection. I think that most people approach SMART as alternative 12 steps. Our experience has been that they work really well together. I would love to see more people take an integrated approach towards recovery by incorporating SMART to their recovery plan.
I think that Rick kind of just sums up that whole inclusive recovery, which is the term that Nadene used at the beginning, which is that SMART is inclusive. It meets people where they are in their recovery journey, and Rick's program and the Greenhouse really sum up that inclusivity that is SMART. Our last slide is just a summary of the plans that we have for the next 12 months. The SRI Board of Directors are meeting at the conclusion of this conference tomorrow afternoon and Monday morning, at which they'll be reviewing our strategic plan and developing more firm goals for 2020. But these are already ideas that we already know that we will be working on. You can read them, so I'm not going to take up time reading them. I do want to reinforce, though, that we are already planning for facilitator training in the Punjab region, the one that I just spoke to you about, which is really exciting. In Russia, SRI, I've never met Joe Gerstein face-to-face until we come to this conference, but Joe is being a constant support to me in my role as EO in assisting me to navigate my way through this global addiction landscape, which is just great. So Joe and I are working on developing some training for Russia with addiction professionals. In Israel, I'm working with Christy from the US office, looking at a partnership with the Israeli government and a rehabilitation college in Israel. And in the Caribbean, again, Joe's been instrumental in that, and as has UK Smart Recovery, working with Trinidad and Tobago Prison Services to implement Inside Out in those facilities as well. So that's what our next 12 months will be like. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And can I just say it's not possible in a short amount of time to share all of what we're doing or to answer what may be questions in your head. So Kim and I, as are around for the next few days.
Absolutely.
And available to speak to anybody.
If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to Smart Recovery's YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the notifications tab to receive automatic updates every time we add new recovery-related content to our channel.